Welcome to EduTalk 876. This is our fourth live session. My name is Trevor Cole, and today we have my two esteemed co-founders, Dr. Shawnee Hardware and Dr. Annette Walker. I want to take this opportunity to thank the panelists who have joined us and to thank the members of the audience who are here with us this evening. We are also streaming live on our EduTalk 876 YouTube channel. In this, our first live session with our principals, we will be discussing topical issues surrounding their leadership. In our first session, we discussed with teachers their lived experiences during the pandemic, and in subsequent sessions, we explored teachers' mental health. Today, we will be focusing on changes in principals' work demands during the pandemic. Here to discuss this timely and important issue are three hardworking Jamaican principals, Mrs. Barnes-Wilson, Mrs. Jones, and Mr. Treasure, who have agreed to share their experiences regarding the changes in their work demands since the start of the pandemic. Mrs. Barnes-Wilson is a principal of the Ogeris Primary School. Prior to becoming principal, she worked as classroom teacher and literacy specialist with the Ministry of Education, Region 3, where she supervised primary and high schools. Mrs. Barnes-Wilson has a master's degree in school supervision. As a motivational speaker, her philosophy is refuse to be satisfied with the last accomplishment. For potential never makes plan for retirement. Quite interesting. Mrs. Jones is a passionate educator who has served in education for many years. She is a former education officer and senior school inspector who loves children and believes that each child should be empowered to achieve their goals. As the principal of Marcus Garvey Technical High School since 2018, she has been on a campaign to rebrand the school and ensure that each student learns optimally. As a result of the pandemic, she has now had to lead the process of revolutionizing the operations of the school to secure positive outcomes. Mr. Treasure, Raymond Treasure, is currently the principal at the York Castle High School, located in Brownstown. His transformational and constructivist approach to education has had a profound impact on York Castle's growth and development. Mr. Treasure served as the campus director for the Brownstown Community Technical Campus. Mr. Treasure has also received several awards for his contribution to education, including the Jamaica Teaching Council Award for Outstanding Leadership and the LASCO Ministry of Education Principal Runner-up for, I think it was 2016, Mr. Treasure. He was also inducted in the National College for Educational Leadership NCEL Executive Principal League. We are so delighted to have you panelists. But as a practitioner myself, as a principal myself, I am aware that the role of the principalship is multifaceted. It requires and demands much of one's personal and professional effort to directly and indirectly influence school-wide excellence. Prior to the COVID pandemic, my colleague, Dr. Walker, conducted research focused on Jamaican secondary school principals' work and occupational well-being. The findings did not only highlight that some principals were experiencing challenges with increased workload or work demand, but they were also experiencing different occupational well-being issues as a result of their work that was intensifying. In recent studies and anecdotal evidence from some of our principals through the media would have highlighted that the COVID pandemic has and continues to pose challenging situation for some of our colleague principals, especially as it relates to school operation and the effective delivery of the curriculum. But before we delve into the intricacies of the work during the pandemic, I want to pause and to ask my colleagues, principal, panelists who are here with us, an important question. How are you doing on a personal level, given the current realities of your work? I am going to start with Mrs. Jones. Mrs. Jones, over to you. How are you doing?
At this particular moment, I am exhausted. I am exhausted because everything that would make someone passionate about education is being tested.
Yes.
Quite honestly, there are days when I think I'm failing that test. Not because I don't love children, not because I don't have an excellent team, but sometimes when things are too intense for too long, even the strongest amongst us gets tired.
Yes.
I have had to redefine success. I have had to rethink what leadership means. I have had to be braver than I ever thought possible. And I've had to recognize that it's okay to fail more publicly than I was ever comfortable with before.
Yes.
So it's a smorgasbord. It really is a very mixed bag when you ask me, how am I doing? As principal, I'm very pleased with some things and I'm very proud of some things. But as a wife, as mother, as human being, I also face a number of challenges. And on any given day, I have 10 things in the air, one hand full and one hand ready to catch.
Understand. So we will get more into it, but thank you so much. I really wanted to find out how you're doing. And so let me move on to Mrs. Barnes-Wilson. Mrs. Wilson, my colleague, how are you doing?
Well, thanks for having me. As it is now, I am giving thanks.
Yes.
I am coping by the grace of God.
Yes.
I'm hanging on in there.
Great. All right, Mr. Treasure, Principal York Castle High School. Sir, how are you doing given the current realities?
Thank you, Mr. Cole. Thanks for having me and other
You're welcome.
Panel. Greetings to you all. Well, I am coping, I would say. When this pandemic just started, it was for me an adventure.
Yes.
It was something that probably took the boredom out of my life, because after serving at an institution since 2009, you wanted some excitement, and this was probably the excitement.
Yes.
However, after 2 years, you're now saying to yourself, boy, this is enough. It's one thing to experiment, but now you find that you are losing some of your students. And I'm not talking about ordinary students. No, we're talking about losing some of your exceptional students. When you see this happening, you know that this can't be a good thing. So you do get a bit frustrated sometimes. And there are times when you feel detached.
Yes.
You see students who may call to you on the road, and the truth is you have never seen these students.
Yes.
I met some students last week. They came in to do an international exam. And the last time I saw those students, they were in grade 9. Now they are in grade 11.
Wow.
The students have grown up
out
of my sight, literally, online. So when you find yourself in that position, trust me, at some point you're going to say, what is this? What is it all about? We must do everything possible to bring it to an end.
Certainly. Thank you so much, panelists, for your view. I really wanted to find that out, as a team at EduTalk. That was something that we really wanted to find out from our principals. Dr. Hardware?
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Cole. I believe Dr. Walker is now online, so I will ask her to ask the first question. Thank you, Mr. Cole.
All right, good.
Thank you so much. Welcome again, participants and panelists. I do hear you, Mr. Treasurer and Mrs. Jones and Miss Barnes-Wilson. We hear you, and we do empathize with the challenges that you're actually going through. And so, you know, as we mentioned, the focus today is to really understand a little bit more, to delve a little bit deeper into some of those challenges or how your work has essentially changed. So my first question for you this evening is given all the different issues that have arisen actually during this pandemic, can you just briefly explain how your work has changed during this pandemic for the past 2 years? And quickly, you know, just keep it maybe like the most essential things that you think that, you know, is quite relevant today. Thank you. Miss Jones, you may go ahead.
My work has gotten very mixed with home, longer hours, far less separation between home and work, and far more impersonal. I would say those would be the three. So the line between home and school have blurred. The work has gotten far more intense for longer periods and far more impersonal than it was before.
Dr. Walker, I think you're muted.
Okay, sorry about that. Thank you so much for that answer. I would really love to hear you delve a little bit further though. You talked about long hours of work, which is something that also emerged in my findings as well. But can you just elaborate a little bit more about the other changes that you have actually seen? What has really contributed to those long hours of work, I should say?
As a school leader in unprecedented times, and I promised myself I would never say that again, it's such an overused phrase. But in these novel times, the truth is, you really don't know. And because you don't know and you lead and you know that persons rely on you and your confidence, you definitely want to do a far more research. You're trying to gather more information. And it's now not just about education, curriculum, assessment. It's now about things like health and safety and security and mental health. And things that you really weren't trained for, but now you're expected to set policy on and lead by example and ensure that everything gets taken care of. And I think a lot of times, especially in the past, I used to focus a lot on the administrative work that was purely data gathering, instructional leadership. But now I'm doing a whole lot of work in research, reading time, gathering information. And that is something that I am doing now for extremely long hours. I'm also finding that the Ministry of Education is trying to grapple with information, and they need that information from me. And now I'm having to do a lot of data gathering, data sifting, data sorting to fit information into the varying formats that they may require. And then the truth is, my team is exhausted sometimes. And in an effort to be kind, in an effort to be sensitive, you take on some of their work so that you can give them more time to be. So rather than asking for something after 4, you stay up until 11 putting that together because you want to give your teachers a measure of break. And I think that a lot of people really don't take that into account from a principal as well, how we take on so much more because we really do want to give the teachers sometimes a bit of a break.
Thank you so much. And, you know, I hope that over time, the workload in and of itself will be reduced, but I'm just gonna move on and ask Mr. Treasurer and Ms. Barnes-Wilson to just add in, but without talking too much about the long hours, but can you just, you know, add a little bit more information as it pertains to how your work has essentially changed?
Well, at this point, I would say I am a virtual instructional leader. My cell phone is now the most important thing. Let me say, the most important tool, this smartphone here. So you literally use it to run your school.
Right.
So in the past, you would reach school at 8 o'clock and you walk around the campus and you greet students, you greet teachers. Dr. Walker will remember Mr. Walsh and Mr. Walsh's type of behavior. I've adopted some of that. So, you know, you walk around and you tease the teachers and you tease the students, that kind of thing.
Right.
No, you do it online. So you go to you get up, you have your devotions on Zoom, you greet your students, you motivate. And then you say, let us do a little walkthrough, and you go to different classes. You visit to see what is happening. You greet the students, greet the teachers, commend them on the lessons. You may check also the Google Classrooms, look at what was posted, make some comments. Then I'll go back to the WhatsApp groups and say, teachers, I looked at your lessons today, wonderful. However, you may do this. And you may even find a few YouTube videos and say, it would be nice if you share videos like these, the students will benefit. And then you move to the WhatsApp groups, where we have WhatsApp groups for all the year groups, parents. And you send little notices to the parents and you also motivate them. And then you may just get a call from a teacher to say, you know, a hacker came into Google Classroom today and told us a couple bad words.
Yeah.
So I know the dean of discipline and say, can you track this situation? So that's discipline.
Yes.
And then I look at the attendance register, which is also in Google thing there, what you call that, Google Docs.
Right.
And you notice that about 100 students did not turn up for the day.
And we're going to get right into that as well. That part right there, that little nugget where you talk about the attendance, student attendance.
My day.
Yes,
And I
yes.
use my cell phone to do all of that.
Okay, okay. All right, so Ms. Wilson, briefly, can you just share with us, other than what they have shared, so that we don't repeat some of the same ideas, what has been like, you know, like maybe 2 major changes that you have actually seen in your work?
Well, for me, are you hearing me?
Yes, I'm hearing you.
Yes, we're hearing you.
Yes.
Wonderful. Well, for me, I have become a virtual helper. And so I have to now be helping parents. And what I realized that I have to be helping them to get on. Oh, we have forgotten our email. And so it's 12 o'clock at night. I have to be online helping. And I've also realized that I have more classes and more parental interaction now being in the virtual space. And,
Right.
and that's what I've seen that has changed drastically for me.
So I've not heard, I think I heard some of you talked about the email and stuff, but you know, I think you're essentially alluding to, well, you know what, let me leave it to Dr. Hardware to get into that question, because I think I'm going to be asking the question she's supposed to ask. So I turn it over now to Dr. Hardware. You go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Walker. I can see your enthusiasm, especially since this is your area of research. So I can see your brain cells firing. And I just want to say, in full disclosure, that I feel as if I had a connection with all the principals, because my brother actually attends York Castle, and another brother attended Marcus Garvey High, and a cousin attended Ocherus. I'm from St. Anne originally. So I feel like I have a personal connection with all the principals here. So I know that Dr. Walker dwelled into some of the changes, which includes lesson learned, but I'm wondering if you could give us some idea of what are some of the pleasant surprises that you found out about yourself, but also your practice during this year and a half of virtual learning, or what is now, I've come to find out, some level of hybridity that's merging on online, offline, maybe online, then offline. What are some of the pleasant surprises from the work over the year and a half? And I will start with Mrs. Jones.
It's because my name starts with A, right?
Because my first brother went to that school. But since I'm practicing my ABC, I was
pleasant surprises. That you don't have to waste a good crisis. And here is why I say that. Prior to COVID, we wanted to branch out into online learning. We were a total paper-based school, and we found every logical reason with all the data why it couldn't work this year. Mm-hmm. In 3 days, we literally had to bury our paper-based school and rise as an online academy. Trust me, Lazarus had company. We literally, the Thursday when school closed, we had confiscated children's phones because they were not allowed to have phones in school. And we were scrambling by Monday morning to redistribute these phones.
Wow, that's
so
interesting.
Kids could be online. And the teachers did it. Mm-hmm. With no Google Classroom, with no particular background, they did it because they made a commitment to the children's learning. And I discovered how amazing teachers really can be when they make a commitment that the children just have to learn. They failed publicly and they said, oops, I'm sorry, this didn't quite work. And they learned how to learn alongside the students, to fail alongside them, to set high standards and to keep pushing. And that has been fantastic. And that's one of the key things, just to see the growth between a school where you couldn't, and all the reasons why it couldn't happen. Now having a school with 117 teachers in 117 work from home locations, and we're able to account not only for every teacher, but for all the students and everything that has been taught over 18 months. And it is fantastic to see that kind of meteoric improvement in education. And so, yes, I'm exhausted, but I'm so pleased when I lay down and I'm tired and my feet tingle to just think about how far we have come. So I'm grinning from ear to ear.
And I can see the passion, so that's wonderful. Okay, let's go to Mrs. Wilson. Mrs. Wilson, what surprises you the most, more personally about yourself? This is not a session like that, but let's do a more personal, and then we get to the general.
Okay, for me, what was surprising for me is that I became tech savvy. What the pandemic has done, it has pushed me into finding out more, because as educators, as administrators, we have to be at a notch above.
I think Mrs. Wilson is having some technical challenges.
Yes.
So how about we go
that I have gone out to have learned so much to go on Google Classroom and all these different things. By the April of 2019, I had already asked my teacher to check out some of these things, because I've always been out there reading and trying that I stayed in the know. Yes, and to understand that I get the feel and knack of these different tools. So when I'm taking it to my teachers, I take it with confidence, knowing that I've tried it myself. That was just awesome.
Awesome.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Treasure.
Well, I guess this pandemic turned me into a self-made techie expert, you know.
Yes.
I was getting calls to do presentations on how to use different things to deliver the presentations and augmented reality, virtual reality, which, to be honest with you, before the pandemic, I didn't have a clue. Pandemic, in a way, forced me to learn these new concepts. and to apply them to teaching and learning. So,
Okay.
in a way, I must say the pandemic has had some positives despite the negatives associated with it.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Okay, so we will hand over to Dr. Walker to ask the follow-up question.
Okay. I thought I was going to be Trevor this time, but it's okay.
That's fine. Go ahead.
All right. Thank you so much for all those responses. It's interesting, some of the things that you're essentially sharing. I know that principals have been experiencing increased technological use, but you're all sounding so enthusiastic and clearly you're getting the job done. So essentially, we know that there is no doubt that the principalship is hard work. And from what you're explaining, it truly is, and it requires longer hours of work. And so we know too that globally, educational practitioners, they've been indicating that no single action or combination of actions is more significant than, building highly effective schools and maintaining high standards. And I heard where Mr. Treasure was saying that he's now the instructional leader. And so, when you're virtually, I should say.
Virtual instructional leader.
Yeah, so in confronting the ill effects of the pandemic, and I hear you, Mr. Treasure, when you talked about students' absenteeism, but also I've been reading much about, your ability to procure a lot of resources as it pertains to some of the, lack of resources. But my question to you, panelists, is what are some of the personal approaches? And this is where you're going to delve a little bit deeper now. What are the personal approaches or the strategies that you have essentially employed when you're dealing with some of these challenges related to limited resources to meet your work demands?
Why break a good thing? I'll jump in first.
Go ahead.
I don't like to call it begging.
Mm-hmm.
I do like to think I'm procuring resources. And since COVID, I think I'm calling it investing. I'm trying to find investors, persons who can look at something that may not yet be and invest. So for me, I am having to find persons who would like to invest in me as a leader, to share experiences that they may have had. I'm coming from a small private school in the Turks and Caicos Islands where I was principal of an Apple-based school.
Wow.
And so we already had a lot of tech. Once the kids come in, they were connected to the internet, attendance marked, all of that, lunch orders, everything set. And then coming back home to Jamaica and going, Jetson, Flintstone.
Yeah.
And I know had to have persons invest in me to keep that dream alive of the fact that this could actually happen within the Jamaican context and for the average Jamaican kid. So that's one, a lot of investing in me, my confidence, my dream, my vision, and doing a lot of that as a leader, because you get attacked in your confidence. That's our soft spot. And when that dream, that vision is questioned and you lose hope of that, it's all gone. So I've had to do that. For school, it's a lot of trying to re-energize people in investing in our school. So we really didn't have as strong a past students association and community partnerships as we would have liked. And so I had to take on becoming the face of the school. So it's a whole lot of makeup, it's a whole lot of trying to talk, it's a whole lot of bar visits, community visits, learning to dance, embarrassing myself, making persons feel a connection with me as a human being.
Right.
So that could be translated to my school. And so it has taken on a whole different realm of not always being a boardroom presentation by Zoom, but rather a corner shop talk so that persons could invest by allowing the children to come to school.
Right.
Because for many kids, device may not have been the issue, but they get sent to do chores during class time. So parents needed to invest by allowing the children the time, and then they needed to invest by taking money from rent, light, water, other real bills to actually invest in online education. So I invested in self, community, and then of course, to ensure that there was a person-to-person human connection so the students could ultimately benefit.
And so what you're essentially saying is that context matters. And I'm happy that you mentioned that the divergent communities in which principals essentially operate. and the support that they get from their alumni and etc., you know, that also sets the precedence for the different challenges that you would actually face over time as it pertains to the lack of resources. So I'm going to ask Mrs. Wilson.
Well,
Can you edit?
Yes. For us at the Otris Primary School, we are blessed to be strategically placed in the center, the heart of the tourism mecca. And so we would have had some really good partners who would have come on board to assist us with it. Our data would have shown that over 502 students were without devices. But we had to be creative. I realized that, as Aniona said, you had to go on your beg. So I had to now find persons who I've not seen in a long time online on Facebook to reach out in order to. The beauty about all of this is that persons who would have passed through the school would have made contact to say, hey, pass through, I would like to donate. But we had some really good partners. NCB, Sandals Foundation, we had JMMB coming on board. We have the Great Pond Foundation coming on board. We had some really good partners coming on board to sort of help to alleviate for students. What we now need is for teachers, because our teachers, the resources from the ministry level is just not there. And when you have a large staff of over 50 odd teachers, the limited resource that you would have accumulated at their tuck shop whilst it was a regular, you would not be able to purchase a laptop for our teachers. So that is where we are right now, creatively thinking of how to reach other stakeholders to sort of buy into getting our teachers resources, because the teachers need to be resourced properly in order to function and to help our children. But our partners have been excellent so far.
Right. And so just to let the participants know that our educators on here, what they're essentially explaining is that they're carrying out what we'll call entrepreneurial leadership. So they're essentially doing entrepreneurial work in trying to procure some of these resources. So let me hear from Mr. Treasure, and then we'll move on to Dr. Hardware.
Yes, Dr. Walker, like my colleagues, we really had to go out and secure tablets for a number of students. I think it is well documented, though, that York has a strong alumni association. And it is good that I would have spent 18 years at Com College. So I'm going to have past students like a Dr. Walker.
That's right, Mr. Treasure. That's right.
So I would be I would be telling a lie if I came on and said that I did not get a lot of support. In fact, we were able to even donate tablets to primary schools in our region. So that was not the challenge, though. The challenge was, yes, we were able to donate tablets to a number of students, but guess what? Some of these students live in deep rural. So they have the tablets, but they don't have Wi-Fi.
Internet.
And you may have given them tablets with data, but at the end of the month, these tablets are out of data. So at some point, you had to say to the students, we are going to recommend that you come to the school and access Wi-Fi at the school. Because the truth is, we have over 100 computers at the school that are just lying there. So we said, come to the school and access the resources there. Because a number of students got tablets all over Jamaica, but they don't have Wi-Fi to use these tablets.
Okay. Thank you very much. And I see Miss Mrs. Jones, I see your hand is up.
In line with that, one of the key things that I'm finding that we've had to do is really to create a forum for unconventional ideas to be tried. So for instance, we had kids who were willing to come to school but just couldn't afford it. So we had to take school to them. And we had teachers who contacted their local churches. We had bought 40 tablets for a reading program that was now sitting at school. So we just made a logical link. What if a teacher would sign out these laptops or these tablets and take them into the communities with local partners like churches to use the Wi-Fi? And essentially that's what we had to do. And so it evolved into School Without Walls, which is an initiative that we're now doing where parents can also leave kids with us for a period of time to just have fun, to just meet their teachers face to face. And these are some of the things that we're also getting assistance for, because the truth is our kids are disconnected. And we found that we were giving them some devices, thank God for past students giving some data, but the kids needed to see us. They needed that human interaction. So the guidance counselors ended up with a mobile counseling unit, again, sponsored by persons being willing to partner in that regard, going out and lunch, snacks, sandwiches, music in the community to create a fun day kind of arrangement. Because the kids needed more than data. They needed a place where they could actually see their classmates, see their teachers, have fun, play games, and be children. And those are some of the things that we're finding that we're also having to partner with. So it's not all academic. A lot of it is social and psychosocial to secure the complete development of our students.
That's what we call holistic development, right?
Okay,
So,
thank you very much for that addition there, Mrs. Jones. Okay, Mr. Cole, I'll hand it over to you.
yes, thank you so much, Dr. Hardware. Central to our work as principals, and I'm speaking in my capacity as a principal, and I'm really enjoying the conversation, hearing the different views and relating to what my colleagues are sharing. But central to our work is having support. Support from persons, from varying individuals, from our families, teachers, past students, the alumni, churches, and so on. But before I ask my next question, I just want to I see that my mother is on the platform giving support this evening. So hi, mommy, I see you.
Oh my God.
Giving support. I really appreciate that so much. Thank you, mommy. So she is on, giving support as usual. But colleague principals, one of the critical things that we have to do is to create a positive learning environment through system-wide safety and security policies. And these are in keeping with our own discretionary measures and guidelines from the Ministry of Education in trying to address issues of bullying, inappropriate behavior, use of technology in the wrong way. My question to you, colleagues, would be, how has safety and security shifted in relation to the new realities of hybrid learning? So yes, during our face-to-face, we used to operate in a particular way. How has that changed now, knowing that we are offering hybrid approach to learning? I'll start with Mr. Treasure this time, then Mrs. Barnes-Wilson and Mrs. Jones. Mr. Treasure, you could go first.
Thank you, Mr. Cole. I did mention that one of the things that we face now is that from time to time, we do have hackers coming on. So you will be doing a Zoom assembly and somebody comes in and they attempt to write on your screen, and I mean, the expletives and those things will come on from time to time. Our students are also at home, and they are basically left alone at home. And while they are there accessing classes online, you know that they are visiting other sites. You know that they are also interacting with strangers because they now have access to TikTok and Instagram and Facebook and all of these things. And whereas at school, they were to a great extent protected from some of those things. At home alone, they are all over the place. So they are going to be exposed to cyberbullying. They are going to be exposed to inappropriate material. And apart from that, the records will show that quite a number of our young girls got pregnant during this lockdown.
Oh.
Quite a number of our young men were exposed to substances that under normal circumstances, they probably would be protected from at school. So a lot has changed, and to a great extent, the safety and security of our students would be seriously compromised because of the current way in which we are operating.
Thank you so much, sir, for sharing. Mrs. Wilson?
I said ditto to what Mr. Treasurer has highlighted. At the primary level, we have not had a lot of instances or reported instances, might I say, as it relates to bullying online and stuff. However, what we try to do at our level is to be proactive. So our guidance and counseling unit at the school would have put in place programs and sessions with our children as it relates to cyberbullying, to online, and even what we found that the children themselves were student to students having these different little issues. We sort of tweeted what our safety and security policy to incorporate the online version. So we had to have conversations, and the guidance department did a lot of that. They would have partnered too with different agencies and would have had forums that would have exposed parents, because we ought to let the parents understand their relevance in the situation. Understand what it is that they need to do to ensure that because what we do as teachers, we will do our best. We try to have our children, for those who are comfortable with it, to have them having the cameras on, so we will know what is happening from within the period of time. So we ask them permission to keep your cameras on. That way our teachers were able to see and know. Those without the cameras, sometimes they don't know what they're engaged in, but at the primary level would have had that time.
Certainly. Thank you so much for sharing. Mrs. Jones, tell us about the Marcus Garvey experience.
We've always had very spirited students who are super creative.
I love that.
And just like we've had to be creative.
I like that.
Just like we've had to be creative. Just like we've had to be creative with the teaching and learning, the kids have also gotten creative in the way that they access information and share information. So what we have tried to do is to, just like my colleagues, and I won't repeat anything that they've said, get ahead of it, but also flip it. So a child, for instance, who may make a video as their Zoom background that loops to pretend like they're in class, social media committee for you. You got skills.
Wow.
You got crazy skills. So kids, for example, who were spending a lot of time on YouTube and TikTok, not an issue. The school now has a TikTok channel. Let's get going. So they were making a lot, and we tried alternative assessment as well to give some of them an outlet. We're now looking at, we've created a whole new portfolio as a part of our establishment to deal with learning management systems, online teaching and learning, and things like that. So we've had to reshift our whole organization as a school to address some things that are coming up with, because it just was too much to spread across everyone's portfolio. We've also put in a student teaching and empowerment program, someone who is senior, whose whole job is to say, all right, talk to us about what you're going through, what you think you want to do, what you see happening, and how we can fix it. So this person creates that bridge between school policy operations and the kids. So in addition to those other things, sometimes you just need to look at your system and shift it up to match the times, because we can do that as leaders, actually shift our organization structure to deal with what we're facing.
I lift my hands up to you. It's an indication that our principals and teachers have been doing a remarkable job in the education system. And this is testimony of that. Listen to our principals, how they speak, and the experiences that they would have had, and how they are impacting the lives of the children. Thank you so much, colleagues. Dr. Hardware,
Yes,
your
thank
time?
you. After all that spirit, we're going to switch the gears a little bit, not too much, not like a U-turn or something like that, but just to speak a little bit about the training and resources that you would have needed. So we're aware that NCEL, which for our audience, wider audience, is a National College of Education and Leadership, provides some level of framework and has initiatives such as the 3R framework, which is the regroup, recondition, and rebuild program. And it helps to prepare principals for dynamic changes in education. And as early as late as 2020, there were reviews in regards to this. However, we still know that there is still work to be done. So how has the Ministry of Education through NCEL, more specifically the 3R framework program, helped to prepare you for some of the different changes that's associated with your work during this novel time, to borrow your term, Mrs. Jones? And we'll start off with Mrs. Wilson.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Doc. All right, so for me, it has been phenomenal. I have really enjoyed that course significantly. For us, we had to regroup. We had to change a lot of our structure, operational structure. We had to recondition, and yes, we had to rebuild. So we had to look at where we were and what are some of the things that we need to change. We had to change our communication. We had to look at our staffing. We had to look at the way in which we were reaching our students, our audience, yes? And so we had to look at that and really use now and the skill, because what for me was outstanding with this program is we had to learn to Maslow before you bloom. And so we had to now cater to persons, individual persons. We had our guidance department, our PTA, yes, that regrouping coming together and giving out care packages. So you had to look about the Maslowing before you can expect them to group. And so we also had to recondition as educators, rethink, retool. How do we approach the teaching and learning? And we had to change something, the timing, the structure had to be changed. Our timetable had to be changed in order to match what was out there, the given realities that we had. We realized as well that we had to really work closely with our parents, more than what we'd have done on a face-to-face basis. So for me, the 3R was something that was really, really wonderful, and I have embraced it. And my team and I, the beauty about it is that in that regrouping, we had to look on how we operate as staff, how we operated as managers. This too took us in a new form, because now we are looking at how we had meetings at 10 o'clock as managers in the night. We had meetings until 11 o'clock. Yes. And so we had to say, oh, we need to step back now and do something differently in order to self-preserve and to take care. So this program that NCEL brought on was really significant, and not only the principal was exposed to it, but our vice principals were exposed, and it allowed us to be opened up to the new platforms. And we were able to retool by saying, how are we going to operate, and which of the platforms we thought would have been best for our context. So it was really, it came at the right time, and I embraced it. And the strategies that were shared with us, I have employed some of that, because even now, we are ensuring that our school is a child-friendly school. So whether we are online or face-to-face, and we tried now to get the teachers to buy into this reconditioning. Yes, it takes a lot. So it has helped to really bolster how we operate as a school.
Well, thank you very much for that, Mrs. Jones. And since you have so eloquently spoken about it, sorry, Mrs. Jones, Mrs. Wilson, since you have so eloquently spoken about that, I'm wondering as a follow-up if I can ask Mrs. Jones to speak about what are some additional resources that are needed to bolster or training, not resources, because I think my esteemed colleague, Dr. Walker, will address that, but what are some additional training that's needed to bolster that 3R program? Not that you're critiquing NCEL, but since Mrs. Wilson spoke so eloquently, just as a add-on to that question. And then we'll take Mr. Parchment as well. Mr. Treasure. I think I need to drink some coffee. We'll take Mr. Treasure. I think I need more than water today. So Mrs. Jones and then Mr. Treasure.
Yes.
That's a tough one. Because training, especially in school administration, I don't think one size fits all. And I think that context really matters. Some of my needs would be best served if a forum were formally created for persons in a similar situation to gather and actually have meaningful conversation and dialogue around our context and what has been working and what we may need to try.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you go into some of the formal training sessions, you're sitting there hearing things and trying to wonder if they recognize that sometimes training is not stretched to fit. One size really does not always fit all. And that the truth is, for teacher training, small shorter sessions more frequently that force anybody to use the information, see the success, get hungry for the next portion is actually far more impactful and longer lasting than formal structured courses that are longer and have this, certification.
Yeah.
So maybe it's not so much the topics, because I do believe that my esteemed colleagues really do think about what we need, and they're really not wrong. It's more for me the design of the program and the experience of the program. Whether I don't want any other long 5-day so-called asynchronous programs that give me heartburn trying to finish it by a certain time.
Heartburn, not heartburn.
Yes, it can be very stressful because remember, leaders tend to be alphas in a number of instances. So we push ourselves, we be a go-getters, all of that. So for me, I would love to see fewer purely asynchronous programs that actually give me a human connection, that is smaller content, shorter content that I actually can use and take the data and the findings from that to inform the next step. And of course, nothing beats a good conversation with a colleague who says, have you tried that? No. And know that the person is in the same context as you.
Okay,
Not the
awesome.
topic, just the design.
Awesome, Mrs. Jones. Okay, let's go to Mr. Treasure.
Yes, I benefited from some of the programs. The virtual instructional leadership program was quite a good one. I was able to borrow a few of the techniques that were shared, would have shared with my teachers, and at the end of the day, I think their delivery of the curriculum would have improved as a consequence of my exposure to that particular program. Mrs. Jones is correct. There are times when you attend some of these sessions and you leave feeling more depressed than anything else because you know that your institution cannot match the resources. So you're right. It is necessary to develop programs at times to suit specific situations. I remember working with the Commonwealth of Learning, and they have developed certain programs for third world rural communities. And they were tailored for those communities. You would not share ideas from Campion with those schools because those schools would never be able to get those kind of resources. So Aniona is right. But generally, I would say we benefited from those programs organized by Excel.
Okay,
I'd like to back up my colleague completely, but just to add another spin to it, introductions are critical. So when I had known Raymond before,
but I like the first name basis. You can call.
I had known Raymond before, but then when I sparked just having a conversation with him, I was like, you know what, we're kind of the only technical school, but you're kicking our butt. We kind of need to give you some competition. How do we do that? And for him to sit me down as a junior in education, a junior in educational leadership, and say, this was my journey. This is how this can be done. And to partner with me so that I could learn some things on the job and benefit from some of his life lessons is another way that learning is happening in the sector. Again, the partnership, the mentorship relationship that you can have definitely promotes the learning in the sector as well.
Wow.
All right, thank you. Okay, I hand it over to my esteemed co-host. I think it's Mr. Cole who's asking the next question.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Hardware. Just want to let the audience know that we see you. We appreciate your presence here. Just saying hi to all the teachers of St. Anne's Bay Primary, York Castle High, Marcus Garvey Technical. I also see persons from the Money College, Otrius Primary, all our educators. We see you. Thank you so much for joining. It's good to have you with us. I want to continue the conversation to talk about two special programs, colleagues. So we are aware that the Jamaican Ministry of Education, and because we have connection in the United States and Canada, we're speaking specifically to Jamaica, has implemented a number of programs. Two programs that they would have implemented are the Pan American Health Organization funded mental health literacy program and the UNICEF funded school-wide positive behavior intervention and support framework. My question to you is, what other resources do you need as an active practitioner in your school, because these two are critical to the advancement of your school, to bring, let's say, to implement policies or to design programs to meet the needs of your children? So we're talking about the positive behavior and intervention support program and also the mental health programs within our institution, given the current realities of the pandemic. I'll start with you, Mr. Treasure, then Mrs. Jones and Mrs. Barnes-Wilson.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cole. Well, one of the things I have noticed, the focus to a great extent is on the delivery of the curriculum. I find, though, that there are other categories of staff who are left out of this whole scenario, like our Dean of Discipline or bursars and so on. How do they function in light of these challenges that we face? Support for parents. To a great extent, the parents are at home doing a lot of work. One of the things I find is that when you give the students marks that are not A's and B's, you find that the parents are quite upset. Why are they upset? They're upset because they help the students to do this work. So we must also find a way to train the parents to deliver the curriculum at home. So in as much as we are providing training, and I see Brownstone High had that kind of training for their parents, a training that helped them to operate in Google Classroom. And I think the Ministry of Education should probably take that on as a national training program, because at this point, I get calls from time to time from parents to say, I would like to monitor my child's progress. How do I do that? And I say, ask your child for the Google Classroom access code and password. Go in, look at what is happening. You will see assessment, you will see videos, you will see this. But I'm speaking to middle class parents. What about the little parent who can't do that kind of thing? So
Right.
that's what I would recommend, training for parents to assist their children to do better online.
Great, great. So let's keep the conversation going. My next panelist, just go ahead.
Mrs. Wilson?
Yes, I believe too that we are looking at the improvement or implementing on a large scale for students and teachers the mental health and literacy. I think we have been taken aback somewhat to have believed that our children have been au fait with technology. They were accustomed to playing games. But what we found at the primary level is that our parents were not so savvy. And so they became flustered. And so they sometimes will have some outbursts on the meet and stuff. So I believe that parents, but also the students, because as a school, we can do so much and no more. Because for those persons who we can't reach, yes, we need to have the ministry who's better resourced to take on that aspect of it, to have these webinars or these sessions with our children. They can source some creative means or some format to engage our children, because many of our children, they can't, and it takes a lot of the contact time from our teachers to be training the children, to be saying to them, this is what you do. Now, most of our time was taken up in September with parents coming on again. Oh, this is frustrating, I don't know what to do. So in order for us, for the literacy, both literacy digitally and also the academic, the comprehension and all of that, we want to have in having sessions for and meaningful session, not to be having just slides running through. The ministry can get mobilized teams and partners and to collaborate, to go through communities, to do some of these activities which will help the mental health of the children. And not only the children, we are talking about mental health of parents and teachers and principals. Not much was done for principals. We have been asked to do a lot as principal, and a lot has not been done for principal. So that is important, as I said.
So we're going to delve into that. So just bear with us.
Mrs. Jones will contribute to the conversation, and then we will take it from there.
Right.
Mental health. I find that a lot of times the persons who tell you to take care of your mental health add more work and stress and then tell you to be healthy. It reminds me of those coaches in the gym that add weight and tell you, no, just, it doesn't quite work like that. I think that we really have not understood how the work itself has changed. For instance, a teacher doesn't only need to know how to establish a Google Classroom. The teacher must now know how to do technical troubleshooting. Have you ever tried to call Flow or one of those companies when your internet is not working and they tell you to press this on the box and press that? How do you feel? Now imagine a teacher that's grappling with the musical chairs called school attendance, their own children at home, their own personal issues, no barrier between home and school. And now you're trying to technically troubleshoot. And so we found that we had to teach teachers how to troubleshoot. Did you try plugging in? Press this on the box. Did you, and literally teach teachers how to do what the technical team at Flow and Digicel and IBM and Apple and all of these things. So teachers had to learn how to do these things on an Apple phone, an iPad, an Android phone, an Android device, a laptop, and a desktop, because you never know what your kids might come to class with. We are underestimating how phenomenal our teachers are and how varied the skill sets now need to be. And so a teacher is not just delivering content. They are managing homes where they're saying to parents, mommy, please mute your microphone because we're hearing
Yes,
all the things
yes.
in your background. They're becoming diplomats. And how do they deal with those frustrations and things as well? And then let's not forget the guilt that comes from making a connection with children and almost feeling guilty when you're teaching 10, knowing that you can't find 35. It's like having a child who's missing. You want to eat and you know you need to rest to keep up your strength, but you don't know if your child has eaten. Let's not forget, our teachers love the children and they connect. And there is this emotional drain and strain that's happening with them as well. I had to say to a parent, and this is my last point, the parent got so mad. So they called the teacher at 6:12 in the morning, sent the teacher a text message. By 7:13, the teacher has not yet answered. You unscrupulous person, I don't know why you're in teaching. And you can't believe you read my message and you didn't answer. So we had to call a meeting and the parent said, Miss, she read my message and she didn't answer. Yes, it's the message on her phone before school hours. Would you have come here at 6:12 to see the teacher? No, miss, but she at home, she must answer.
Oh, Lord.
That's what my teachers are facing. That's what your teachers are facing. That's what your colleagues, your neighbors, the persons in the church beside you are facing.
Right.
So mental health is more than saying to someone, have a good day. Identify your emotions. It's being able to treat with everybody else's emotions and a changing job faster than you can count and even identify. So it's really very necessary for us to stop and talk about it and create spaces to do something.
Well
Thank
said.
you for that. So that's a perfect segue.
I would like to add something else. The latest we get to know is almost daily in our teachers' WhatsApp group. We see the new things coming in to say this person's mother has passed on, this person's uncle. So you literally must have at all times a condolence message somewhere to respond to these issues.
Yes.
And as soon as you're there trying to say, all right, let me process this one and prepare myself to speak to this teacher, you get another one and another one. And it's not just the teachers, it's the ancillary, it's the admin, it's the students. So these are really unprecedented times, Aniona.
For sure, and we're certainly aware of that and we hear you. And it's a perfect segue into our next question because we're essentially over time because we're cognizant that our participants are on and perhaps they'd like to ask a question. But one of the things that we'd like to also mention here is that in our last 3 sessions, we focused a lot on stress and trauma. And we had educators on who were expressing some of the same things that you're now sharing as well. And so it's really commendable to hear you even advocating for your teachers, while we know, especially myself who have done the research, we are cognizant too that you yourselves are stressed. And so one of the questions, or I would say the last question we'd like to ask you is, what are the long-term support services that you think is essentially necessary, not just for your teachers, but I want to take it back personal to you now. Because earlier you talked about working long hours. You talked about what seemingly seems to be the increased email, the increased volume of work. You talked about how technology has changed and you've shifted away from that paperwork and you have to now go into that technology mode. Mr. Treasure, to sum him up briefly, he talked also about being an instructional leader and getting into all those different nuances around technology. And so with all of that change, and all of these things that has essentially impacted you, we're thinking now, in response to this question, what long-term support services do you think are necessary to help principals, vice principals, and other school leaders manage their work-related stress?
Okay, I think we can start with Mrs. Wilson and then Mrs. Jones.
She might have gotten disconnected, so we could continue until she rejoins.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Mrs. Jones, you were responding lastly, so maybe we can just continue.
I was saying discounts on mental health services. And it might sound a little facetious, but today I have a teacher who is missing from the 15th of September. Now it is said in the, I remember having a conversation with her and she says, Miss, this is a little bit too much.
Yeah.
Essentially, this is a lot.
Mm-hmm.
As a principal, as a school leader, you wonder, what else could I have done? What am I not picking up? How do I monitor 117 teachers plus almost 70 support staff? And just the guilt of, did I do enough? And all of these things, they wear on you like sandpaper on wood. And you don't want to lotion with wax to the point at which nothing seeps in and impacts you, but you do have to do it just enough that some things run off your back. And how do you cope mentally without appearing apathetic or just disconnected?
Mhm.
And I would definitely advocate for discounts on mental health services for school leaders. I know I have personally taken steps to walk into an office and say to somebody, I am not okay.
Mhm.
I need you to help me to work through what I am feeling, because I'm not feeling one thing and I don't even know how to pull apart this thread of emotion. I'm excited, I'm anxious, I'm angry, I'm hurt, and all the things that are happening, and to pull them apart to even identify them, and then to be very deliberate with how I act. We're almost in wartime, and the new frontier is a biological warfare, and not to mention the warfare on ignorance and losing our children.
Right.
Mhm.
So I would really advocate for school leaders for us to really get discounts on safe spaces where persons who are trained go, hey, you can get a 20% discount. I will talk to you for free. Just no judgment, a safe space where you can come and say, I am not okay, and how to work that through. That's incredibly important, because when you're the leader, Dr. Annette, you can't always vent downwards. Your school may not be the safest space to have those conversations about the things that bother you the most.
Yes.
So you will need that external support to just even identify what you're feeling and then work it through.
I really appreciate you going there about being so forthright. And we do empathize. We have been reading in the paper, and we didn't want to bring it up like that about your teacher being missing. And so with that being said, we're going to connect with you further, because we did have that conversation with some of our psychologists before about getting support for our school leaders. And so I'd like to hear from Mrs. Wilson, and then we'll just take it to Mr.
I'm not sure if she's on, so we could go to Mr. Treasure, because I'm not sure if Mrs. Wilson is back on.
I think I just saw her.
Oh, she's back on? Okay, good.
Yes,
good.
I am. I am.
Good.
When it comes on to the mental health, I think a lot of conversations need to be had, because our mental health, I mean, it's such a change in the time that we are in now and all of that. However, I do believe that the Ministry of Education has to now extend itself, and again, partnering with others is very significant. Having regular sessions with stakeholders, with us as leaders. We need coaches, not supervisors. And so it takes a lot from us as principals. I remember we had to take just a week or two ago a Sunday afternoon of an hour per, and we were praying for Marcus Garvey teacher. We were praying for ourselves, because we keep hearing the guidance counselors were having different deaths in their family. Who counsels the counselor? Who counsels the principal? Who preaches to the preacher? So what I really believe that more conversation, yes, where we can feel free in a space to just unwind, yes, and an online thing. Sometimes it doesn't have to take monetary, being expensive, but just to have that conversation where we can feel free to speak, where we can feel free to express ourselves, and having these conversations, not short conversations, not having an hour or two with teachers, parents, principals, will go a far way. Because can I say to us this evening, it is what comes on the inside that will impact us. So if a lot of negative and a lot of bad energy from around, and then the pressure in wanting data and all of that, that is adding to. So if it is that we can now transform, and we have to get to the stage where we do not see teaching and learning as having to complete a curriculum. that is bringing added stress. Yes, the ministry, if you want to relieve us, is to take away some of what is being asked of us. And yes, we will love if we can do a virtual night out as colleagues talking together.
Yes,
I think that
yes.
will go a far way.
I wish you know what, we're definitely going to be having a special session for principals where we'll invite some psychologists on, because we did that for our teachers, and I think it's very, very important. And I'm happy to hear that you're all open in terms of mixing that spirituality with also accessing care. But I don't want to talk too much because I need to get Mr. Treasure's perspective on this, because time is going and we don't want to keep our participants here for too long as well. Mr. Treasurer, can you go ahead?
Right. Well, the ministry and other stakeholders have been doing these virtual psychosocial sessions.
Yeah.
The truth is, I did see a few of my colleagues saying that some of these sessions, in as much as they are well intentioned, they don't necessarily help, especially to our male colleagues. They to be very bored sitting for 2 hours listening to a psychologist and that kind of thing. I over the summer break, we had our principal conference at one of the hotels on the North Coast, and I tell you, for many of us, that was our psychosocial session, because we were able to meet and greet, and a few of them got called to the bar and that kind of thing. And to be honest with you, they left that place.
Look at Mrs. Jones.
No, I don't say anything is wrong with these virtual sessions, but at some point,
Mix
in
it
fact, I
up.
said to my staff development chair on Monday, we need to call our teachers to work and just have fun together. We need to see each other. We need to let down our hair and that kind of thing. Because yes, we are here talking and yes, we are benefiting, but trust me, if we're able to come together even for 2 hours and distance 6 feet, it makes a world of difference. So if the government can give us even 1 day at a hotel, enjoy
I guess house is the guest house.
That's a lot of psychosocial support.
Yes.
Trust me on that one. Putting on a virtual talk is one thing, but give us a day at a hotel so we can be
or a guest house
to the pool and all of those things.
Yes.
It will do a lot of good to the teaching profession.
Yes, work-life balance is key. And our psychologists did mention that. Some of our teachers also did mention that. And, you know, quite frankly, we're so quite aware that a lot has been happening as it pertains to the pandemic, essentially impacting educators, including school principals, including teachers, also guidance counselors, their mental health. And so, you know, it's 24 minutes after the hour, 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock Jamaica time. We're cognizant of that. We'd like to
hear from the audience,
participants, if they'd like to ask any questions and, you know,
or to contribute, or just to contribute.
Yes. Any participant, if you'd like to raise your hand and ask a question or make a point, that would be awesome.
Okay, I'm looking and I haven't seen anyone.
All right, yes.
No one has really unmuted.
So we have 2 hands.
Okay.
Patricia Palmer, that's my teacher. So let me admit her. Go ahead, Miss Palmer.
And then we have Mr. Isaacs.
And then we have Mr. Isaacs, principal at Monique College.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, Palmer.
I like the idea of going to like a hotel to let down your hair. You know, we have gotten accustomed to being in the virtual space, and that is where all the stress comes from. You know, so being at a hotel, with your colleague, where you can actually see each other, maybe give a pat on the shoulder or something, I think that would work. I think that is a good remedy. Yes.
Thank you, Patricia. But remember, COVID still a keep, so the government will
I
just have
know.
to think about.
I know.
Yes.
Still
Isolation.
Social distancing.
Okay.
With that in mind.
Thank you so much for that. Mr. Isaac.
You're welcome.
Good evening, everybody. First of all, I want to thank Mr. Cole.
Yes, sir. Yes, Mr. Isaac, good to have you.
To invite me. I follow him on Instagram, so I saw the activity taking place a couple months now, but because I wasn't invited per se, I didn't know. When you reached out and invited me, I decided to come in. So I am here this evening. Firstly, I want to commend this. So I've been following you. I've been following the growth, the expansion of what is happening here and the discussion. And I want to applaud the initiative, firstly. I don't know the origin of it, but I must say that it's an excellent initiative. And having been invited to it now formally, I'm here and I would want to be on it going forward. I've listened intently to the discussion that have been taking place as it relates to what Mrs. Jones has said, and also my colleague and friend, and I nearly said buddy, but he knows when I say buddy what I mean. Mr. Treasure from back in the days, who he and I worked together in the community college system back in the days, and we continue to maintain excellent contact. I want to say something just to close. Firstly, Mrs. Jones hit me somewhere a while ago when she shared about the mental issues and how we as principals are faced with challenges, and how personally sometimes the sandpaper, how you have been brushed and rushed and all different things happening in the sandpaper and how it impacts upon you. All of you would know by now that there was a significant issue last couple of weeks ago, 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago here at the college, where having gone through a process of formally engaging a company to carry out a service, I was here in my office like I am now, and I got a call that 2 men were caught in a pit and couldn't come out. And I had to hurriedly go there, and I've been a principal for, this is my 30 years or so I've been a principal, because I was a principal, not 30, 25 years. I've been a principal at Monique Primary and Junior. And I'm so glad to see Dr. Annette. I want to speak to that, and Mr. Cole, who are past teachers of mine, and I'm extremely proud of them. But I'll talk to you, different Annette, about that, but very proud. But I felt the last couple of weeks have been challenging for me. And let me tell you what I have been doing personally. I'm going to be closing, because you would never know what you said, Mrs. Jones, and how it impacted upon me. Because as principal, I had to deal with everything. I had to deal with the fact that 2 persons died here. I was there. I literally went in the place trying to, because that is, and then a couple months ago, we had somebody else dying here which somebody I knew personally. So it has been challenging. And then the next morning, the other person dying. And then everybody calling the Facebook thing, the social. One of the things I need to look at is the impact of social media on your operations when you are dealing with a school system. For example, what is happening there now, my colleague, with Williams at Marcus Garvey, the fact that 2 persons are missing. And I'm, Mrs. Jones, just let me know, because one of the next thing I'm doing, I'm just, Uriah is preaching now. This morning I'm coming here to work, and I see a group of persons, and I said, I am in the area. I see the group in Golden Grove, but nobody said to me, Isaacs, we needed to come. Because I would take off my jacket, put on my sneakers, put on my jeans, I don't look so bad in it, and I'd walk with you behind the person.
Tracksuit, Mr. Isaac, tracksuit, not jeans.
No, it's jeans. It's jeans I saw them in. I saw them in this morning in a white shirt. So I'm willing to be there. But the point I want to critically say, though, is that this forum is an excellent forum for teachers, an excellent forum for principals. But one of the things that we have not yet looked at too, which is something I think Ms. Williams or Treasurer mentioned it earlier, is about the other support team, the ancillary staff, because they have their challenges too, and the admin people. So you have to find a forum where they are brought into the discussion and to share with you how they are facing. Because for the most part, my admin people are at work every single day. For the most part, they come to work. You may have a few of them who will work from home, but a large percentage are coming, whereby the academic staff are not coming here with the regularity. They may feel, there are quite a number of issues there. But I want to thank you. There's so much to say. Time doesn't allow it. But I'm thankful I'm in this session today, listening to Dr. Hardware. Is this the same Hardware that I know?
I'm not sure, but I'm pretty unique, so it might be the same one.
Oh my God.
You didn't go to a school in Brownstone, did you?
I went to Ferncourt.
Oh, you went to Ferncourt. You went to the best school in the land, right?
I know it.
Yes, I know you. Ferncourt is the best school. We have to labor Vincent. So thank you very much.
I am here, you know, boss.
No, but Trevor, you can understand.
It's a school fight now. We're not going to have a school fight now.
Right, but it's a good forum, Mr. Cole and
Yes.
Dr. Walker, Dr. Hardware, and the other colleagues who are here. Very good. Thankful that I'm a part of
So
it.
much. Thank you for that plug. Thank you for that plug, Mr. Isaacs. As he mentioned, he's our former principal
Yes.
at the Monique Primary and Junior High School, where Mr. Cole and I worked for a few years, quite frankly. So we're gonna, I think my colleague and friend, Shernet, had a comment to make. Shernet, would you like to open your mic and go ahead?
And then Michelle Burnett, and I think Valerie. So we take those three people, and that's it.
Shernet,
Okay, then. Good night, everyone. I just want to say the forum is so awesome. It's excellent. It's a good way of finding out some of the things that are happening in the schools. And as Dr. Walker said, mental health is so important. It's so much paramount for people to really look at your mental health, because it really sets the pace for how you do daily. And one of the things, one of the principals mentioned, I'm not sure which one it was, when you said that the Ministry of Education maybe needs to look at a situation where they go into communities and try to get some of these children and talk to the parents to get them to come out to school to kind of increase the attendance.
Right.
And I think that's a very important initiative, because I just realized that in Florida, Broward County did that initiative about 2 weeks ago, where the school office actually went out into the communities to get the children to come back to school or be online.
Right.
So it's a very good initiative, and I really appreciate the program I'll be on, and I'll try to invite as many educators as I know.
So much.
So,
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's my childhood friends, participants and panelists. That's my childhood friend. Thank you so much for that.
Okay. All right. So we.
I did see before Dr. Hardware. I did see someone from Primary. I don't know if a representative from that school wanted to ask a question. Could we just allow?
Is that Michelle?
Go ahead.
Or Michelle? Is it Michelle?
Michelle Burnett.
You may go ahead.
Okay, good night.
Hello, good night.
Yes, from primary and infant school. Now, I must say this is a very informative and educational program that you have here. Also, I just want to comment on what Mrs. Barnes-Wilson mentioned earlier on, as it relates to resources for the teachers to use. You know, since COVID-19, many of us as teachers, have been using our own devices, our phones, our laptops, our computers, and over time, they have some of us, they have gone bad, and we haven't gotten anything else to work with, and it's a major concern because we are working from home, we are working online, but I just can't figure out. I mean, we say every child must learn and no child must be left behind, but I just can't put my finger on it to say, why is it that as teachers, we are not provided with the resources that are needed to carry out our jobs effectively? I just can't put my finger on that. You know,
So
I like to know. I know you're not the person responsible for this, you know, but you know, it's a great concern of mine because as I'm speaking to you here now, I am experiencing challenges where that is concerned. I had my laptop very good working with fine. No, I'm resorting to my phone and my phone is going. And that's not effective, you know? So we really need to get some resources. We really need to get some resources. If we really mean our children well, we want them to do well. We don't want them to be left behind, but what is there for us to work with?
Right.
Yeah, thank you very much for that.
I think
the interesting thing is having principals here who can also be advocates. And while we recognize the hard work that they've been doing, they still can act in capacity as advocates. So we will definitely make note of that and see if we can have other
I think Mr. Treasurer would like to add a comment.
Right. Just to say that at the principal association's level, we did ask our representative to make representation on behalf of teachers because the argument was presented that we have given laptops to students, but we have not given to teachers. And so that representation is being made on behalf of teachers for teachers to be given. Yes, we were given tablets, but as you know, you can't really prepare a lesson of such on tablets. So we are making representation for teachers to be given laptops as well.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Hold on a second, Dr. Harder. The person who just spoke, are you a teacher or are you an administrator?
From Prairie, I believe.
Are you an administrator or a teacher? Just quickly.
It sounds as if she's a teacher.
Okay.
Right.
All right. So
Mr. Isaacs wants to make a point.
I just want to plug in something. With the salary negotiation that the JTA is doing now with the ministry, to the Ministry of Finance, we have put in the package. We got it done the last time as it related to tablets. This time we're asking for laptops. We're in the negotiating room now, so we are seeking to advocate that every single teacher in the system, not just JTA members, every single teacher that is registered in the system is expected to get a laptop. So we are hoping the negotiations have just started, so we're working on that. So I just want to put that on for the.
Thank you for mentioning that.
If that person would like to maybe put your number in the chat to one of our hosts, either myself, Dr. Hardware, or Dr. Cole, Trevor Cole, the principal, then that would be awesome. I think we also had two other persons, Valerie, and was it Michelle, Dr. Hardware?
Yes, Michelle.
Yeah.
And then we'll wrap up.
Yeah. So Michelle or Valerie, you may open your mic and go ahead.
Okay, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Hi, Valerie.
Yes, just want to say that I believe that there's too much bombardment in our space. So from last year, March until now, I doubt if most teachers got any break. There's no distinction between home time and school time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, parents are always in your space, and I think that can contribute to a deterioration in people's mental health too, you know? So I think there needs to be some consideration, and there needs to be some space, some line of demarcation to say, you just can't bounce into the teacher's space anytime you want.
Right.
A child was with you in class. For example, I had a child in class with me on Monday. He sat before me for 1 hour. And then by Tuesday evening, he's calling me way up in the 7 o'clock to say something to him that I could have said in the class time. Then you're going to see him as if you're rude and you're not cooperating, you're not helpful, and all sorts of things. Too much is expected of the teacher. I think too much, and things that were not done during face-to-face, they are now capitalizing on this pandemic and the situation to do things that are not necessary. A parent called me yesterday evening to ask me to explain, to almost give her an answer to an assignment, to explain for her. So you're duplicating, triplicating, quadruplating the work, because you have to be explaining to students the work. Parents are calling for help because they too need to understand the work. And sometimes the children, when you talk to the children do understand the work, but the parents want to learn from you. So you have to be teaching parents in your spare time. You have to be teaching children. You have to be answering queries, plus all the other things at school, the different WhatsApp groups that you have to be answering too. So I think it's just too much. And something needs to be done there. Parents need to be told too that although they have an obligation to their child's or their children's education, they cannot want for us to teach them as a children. It just can't happen. It shouldn't happen. It's too much.
So Ms. Valerie, we hear you, and you're sharing similar concerns even to what our principals had already expressed. And so we do understand. We have been hearing that also from even our teachers who are on for our first session. So we're making note of all these things as well. Dr. Hardware, do you take?
Yes, I was saying, I wonder if these boundaries were established in the Parent Teachers Association. Maybe if not, then this is something that needs to be raised, especially should we go into another year or even another term of online schooling, establishing firm boundaries with parents so they're aware of that divide. I think the last person, and we're really over time. So the last person is, I think it was Michelle who had a comment. If Michelle isn't here, then we'll close off.
If Michelle isn't here, I'll also read this comment that someone texted. It's from our butler. It was a great session, and maybe other schools could be invited. I think Mrs. Jones, this is for you when Marcus Garvey when you have your next staff games night. So if Michelle isn't here, then we'll close off and we'll turn it over to Mr. Cole to close us out.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Walker and Dr. Hardware. I see. Oh, well, I'm not sure if this is the Michelle, but another Michelle is coming.
No,
in.
it's a different Michelle.
Okay. So it has been an awesome discussion. We have had some interesting views. Our panelists, they have really expressed themselves, and they have also reminded us using this forum that despite the challenges of COVID, things are really happening within our schools. And I believe that we ought to give our school leaders, our teachers, and support personnel the due recognition that is deserved. So thank you to our panelists for your invaluable contribution and time today as you share your experiences with EduTalk 876. Special thanks to our viewers. We were delighted to have you, and others who would have made it possible. I may have gotten myself into trouble by saying hi to some teachers from some schools, but I have to big up my school, St. Anne's Bay Primary, York Castle family, Otrius Primary family, the Marcus Garvey Technical family, the Money College, Fern Court,
Massive,
and all over educators. We really thank you for joining. As we continue the conversation with our principals, please remember to share the session with others. That's very important. You can find us on different social media platforms. We're on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. We're also on TikTok. We were delighted to have you, and we thank you. Continue to keep safe, and let's continue to connect with each other, because we cannot underestimate the value of human connection.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, and do have an awesome evening.
And we ask that our panelists remain behind for just 5 minutes, and and our participants, again, we thank you. Mr. Cole, take it away with us.